Okay. Hey guys, how's everybody? Um, Wanted to come on today. I want to talk a little bit about the business of being a realtor. This is also going to be a little bit of a preamble to the training that we're going to be doing about business planning. I want to do that somewhere in the middle towards end of October because we're going to be helping you guys start doing a business plan, and the business plan is going to help you set up for next year. I don't know how many of you guys have done a business plan before, but essentially it's a way for you to say, what are my financial goals and how can I get there in my business? And what does that mean for me on a day-to-day, week by week, quarter by quarter basis? A lot of people I've noticed in this business don't have a solid plan, right? We all kind of have this like, let me just get in there and work as hard as I can. And fortunately, we are in the type of business where if you really grind it out, you will become successful. But imagine how much better your business could be and how much motivation you would have if you have targets, if you have goals that you set for yourself and you're constantly working towards achieving them. There are many ways for you to motivate yourself. And remember, in this business and with most things in life, it's about consistency, and motivation is a fleeting thing. A lot of times we'll feel motivation, but it may fade. There might be times where we might hit tough point of our lives, or something happens in our personal lives that causes us to lose a little bit of that motivation, but the discipline, that's what's going to persevere. So having a business plan in place from the beginning is going to help you so that those moments when you don't have the motivation, you're still persevering. It's that willpower to go on. And it also helps you plan properly. For example, if you have like, how many of you guys know what you want to do in 3 years and 5 years? Like, who has a 5-year plan, right? Well, how can you have a 5-year plan if you don't even know how much you're planning to make this year? And of course, we all know that our business is not so predictable, right? You may think you have X amount of deals happening, but some fall through or whatever the case might be. However, a business plan is a really good way to motivate yourself and to try to get to hit those goals. So we're going to be doing a training where I'm working out this workbook, and I'm also doing an Excel sheet that you guys are going to be able to plug in some numbers. And based on it works a little bit like this. Let's say I want to make $100,000 a year next year, and for that $100,000, the average sales price of the home that I work in my area is, let's say, 400,000, and then your average commission, let's call it 2.5%. So on a $400,000 sale, and you make 2.5%, you have what is that? That's $10,000 that you would have in a commission check, right? So and you put in what your split is and your fees, and it helps you. It's a couple of items that you plug into the spreadsheet, and it helps you say, okay, on average, I'm going to make, let's just say it's $7,600 per transaction. So how many transactions do I need to do to hit 100,000? So it'll calculate all of that. And it'll tell you, okay, this is how many transactions I have to do to be able to hit my financial goal. And then the next portion of it is, well, how do I plan that out? How do I get this many transactions? Well, let me see. How many transactions did I get last year from cold calling? How many transactions did I get from my sphere of influence, from referrals? How many transactions did I get from lead generation programs, right? And then you start plugging all these things in, and it gives you a really good roadmap of like, okay, so I know that if I got 5 from this source and I start little by little working at it, I could get more. But it's always about the numbers. So open houses, for example, let's say you get an average of 2 deals for a transaction. But if you're working your sphere of influence, it may take you a little longer, right? So you budget for those numbers. If you say that I'm trying to get 10 clients from open houses, does that mean I have to do 20 open houses? Because it's a numbers game, right? Let's say you average half a client for an open house. So that's a little bit of a kind of a preview of what we're going to be doing at the next training, which is going to be our business planning. And what I want to do is a 2-part. It's going to be a workshop. One is going to be all Zoom. I want everybody in the company to really do it and do this Excel sheet that I'm going to send out, and I'm going to help you guys fill it out. But then the second one is you guys are going to take 2 to 3 weeks to actually fill all of this out, because I'm going to ask you for your personal budgets. I want you to look at what your expenses are. You know, how much is your car payment? How much is your mortgage or your rent? How much is your credit card payments, your student bill, whatever it is? You got to put all of that in there, because you need to know what your living expenses are so that you could also appropriately set your goals for your income. Today, I'm going to be doing kind of like general tips of how to run your business. We are 1099 employees. We're independent contractors. And as independent contractors, we are pretty much in charge of handling our business. The problem is most people don't look at it that way because a lot of us have not been 1099 contractors. Before I became a realtor, I was a W-2 employee. So I just had my salary. I know what my salary was and I knew my deductions and that I just went from there. It's not the same for us as LLCs. So there's a couple of things that I want to hit. First is I think that everybody in this business, even if you're brand new, should start tracking your sales. Any types of production that you guys have, how many of you track your sales? Like how many of you know your numbers? If I asked you right now, how much in volume did you do last year? How many of you can sincerely answer that like that? Maybe not too many, right? So why is that? What's the most important part of a business? It's the income. It's the net operating income of a business, right? So for you to be able to know that, you need to know certain numbers. So I'm going to share with you guys a spreadsheet that I created some years back, and I've been using it ever since. And I want you guys to fill it in. I want you guys to take a couple weeks, go through your transaction history, go on the MLS and go on the productivity, see all your closed deals. And I need you to add in a couple things. First is what I like to do, because I use this also as kind of like my database, is the client's name. Okay, first is always client's name. The second thing that I put in there is the phone number. And then the third thing is the email. Those are my three things that I can now use this as a database, right? And for those that don't have CRMs, a simple Excel sheet can serve as your CRM. Because when I send out invites for stuff, I just click on the email field and it highlights all of the emails from my clients. I copy it from there, I put it into my Gmail and I send my emails out. It's easy, right? So it's good to have it all in one source. So those three items. The next thing I have there is the property address. And the property address could be different from the mailing address, right? So I would have another field down the line more is also the mailing address, but the property address is important because here's another thing that I do. When, let's say, election time just happened in Rahway, when the mayor was up for election, I went through all of the properties that I sold. I sorted it by property address, and I took all the Rahway properties, and I sent a message to each individual person and say, hey, I'm supporting this person for mayor. Can I put a lawn sign? Yada, yada, yada. What were the first three? The first three are the name of the client, and let me open mine just so I can have it as reference. And I'm gonna essentially take all of my information out and save it as a new spreadsheet, and I'll send it to you guys. I'll reply all to the invite. So where you guys saw that I emailed out the code, that's where I'll send it. Let me do this here. I mean, look, I'll share my screen with you guys here. No biggie. Hold on. Can you guys see my screen? Yeah. All right. So here's an example of kind of how mine works. Yeah, I'll show you. Here, so the first one is always I have numbers, so I number the transactions, so I can keep track of how many transactions I've done year to date or whatever. And then I have the name of the clients. Then I have the address of the property their address, like their mailing address. So if I need to contact them, that's what it is. If they're a buyer, then their address should be their property address as well, because they're buying that property. It shouldn't be the old address, right? Then I have their phone number, and then I put their email. And then after that, I have the property address. Again, it could be different. So if it's a seller, typically their mailing address is not going to be the same as the property address, because if they sold that property, I can't mail them stuff there, right? After that, I usually put the close date, what date the closing happened. And that helps me also, like when I do anniversary texts or calls. And then I put the type of buyer, like the type of client it was, if it was a buyer or if it was a seller or a tenant, landlord, whatever it is, because then I could sort it based on that. I also put the closed price. That helps me for my volume. Then I put gross commission, net commissions, all that. So essentially it's for you to be able to track how much did I generate in gross sales volume, and also how much did I generate in commissions for myself. And then, I scroll down and add everything in together. And then I do kind of like some macro numbers at the end. So like I can tell you pretty much like 2020, I also break it down by quarters. So in 2020, I did 3.7 mil in quarter one, but in quarter three, I had 6.3 mil, but quarter two was super slow, 1.3. So like this also starts, if I start seeing a repeating pattern year over year, I can see what happens. So this was 2020. I did $14.6 million in volume, which was a gross commission of $299,000. And because of the company that I was at, which was Coldwell Banker before, they have higher splits. They took a lot of money, right? So from 299, I ended up taking home like 233. So my prior brokers used to take a lot of money. With us here in Lifestyle, you obviously get to keep a lot more. And I used to have to pay on top of that royalty. I paid $9,500 in royalty. So, this is where I used to keep track of my numbers. But what I did see, I started noticing the more I did it, and I can go back in years, and I have this for every year that I've been in business, I can start seeing patterns. I see that my Q3 in 2019 was huge. And my Q3 in 2020 was also huge. And then my Q2s are kind of low. You start seeing patterns and you start recognizing that there's ebbs and flows to this business, right? Why is it? Q1 is January, February, March, right? So what happens is, in my opinion, a lot of times you have people who are around Christmas are not looking to buy anymore, and then that you're not putting in as many deals. So those deals that close in like January, February is not as many. But then you kind of start having a rush. But then my Q3s have typically been higher. So what are Q3s? That's that's the June, July, August, September. So July, August, September, I've noticed that when I bust my ass in the spring market, I end up pushing a lot of deals towards that third quarter. So it helps me kind of plot out my year based on my numbers. If you don't know your numbers, you're in trouble, because you should always be aware of what's going on. The other thing it helps me is, like, I then take numbers and I do math. All right, so I did 6 buyers that year and 20 sellers that year. That was 2019. And then in my average sales price, I took the amount of total volume that I did, and then I divided it by the amount of transactions, and I found out my average sales price was 344, 2019. In 2020, my average sales price went to 430, right? In 2021, my average sales price went to 430. So again, it's just like, it's a matter of continuously increasing, but if you don't know your numbers, you don't know what to target, right? That's my main point. That's pretty much it. So what I think that you guys should do in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to email this. I mean, you guys saw it. It's pretty simple, but I'm going to send out my template, and I want you guys to fill it in. Put in everything, every single transaction that you've done, so that you can start looking at your numbers, and then break it down also by quarter. All of these are formulas too. So when you change one number, it auto changes everything else. This way you can say, okay, if I know that my Q3s are usually my strongest, that might inform the way you make business decisions. Some businesses are very strong towards the end of the year. So then they know to keep their spending lower towards the beginning, right? Or maybe when they try to do new promotions, they're trying to maximize the business that they can generate in the beginning of the year. So if I know that my Q1 and Q2 are typically my weakest, guess what? I'm going to start pushing really hard in Q4, or I just understand that, look, I take a break for Christmas and New Year's, and that's why those numbers suffer. You know what I mean? Like, those are the types of things that you have to really figure out. What is it that you want to do? But you can't make a business decision if you don't have your business numbers. So it all starts here. Now, that's my first thing, is know your numbers. You have to know your numbers. You have to have everything down pat, because if you don't understand that, you can't do any of the rest of the things that I want to talk about. The second thing for me, it's budgeting. A lot of people kind of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but from my experience, I've seen people that they spend as they make, right? We make some money and they're like, okay, now I can buy this. That's not really, like, you should be a little more proactive in the way you plan things. Or some people wait to have a closing and then spend on advertising, right? Most people wait till they have something and they're like, okay, I made good money. I had 3 closings. Let me throw $1,000 into advertising. And no good proactive business should be ran like that. A business should have a marketing budget for the year. Take however much you think you're going to make with that year, and then take whatever percentage you deem to be enough. If I'm thinking and I'm projecting myself, look, I want to make $100,000, and I think 10% is reasonable. That means I want to spend $10,000 in advertising. That is, to me, low, but reasonable. So then if you're going to spend $10,000, project out how you're going to spend it. Why? Because sometimes when you start doing it, it turns out that you start spending money on things that maybe don't compound or don't make too much difference for you, because money spent in advertising takes some time to give you a return. It's not like you can just put the money out and then get it immediately. Advertising typically compounds. So if you know you're going to spend $10,000 over the life of a year, you should start planning to do that by quarter. So say, okay, I'm going to spend $2,500 by quarter, and that means I'm going to do, let's say 2 EDDMs per quarter. And then you space them out, choose what you want to do, and do it. That's a way more effective way to market, because it's going to create consistency. If people hear from you twice a quarter, just like you already planned that out, they're going to hear from you 8 times in a year, right? As opposed to like you just made some money and you send them a mailer, they're going to forget your name. Like the marketing laws say that somebody needs to see your brand 7 times before they recognize it, right? So if you're spending money, it's like you're wasting money. If you're only spending money once a year because that's when you waited to do it, you're not going to be consistent. You might as well not do it, because it's not going to lead you to positive results for the most part. There are, of course, the off chance that you hit somebody right at the moment, like they got a mailer and they were like, you know what, I have been thinking about selling my house, and they call you. You may get lucky like that. But the more effective way to do it is to properly plan, which is right from the beginning of the year, know how much money you want to spend that year, and try to really work towards doing that. Also, savings. When it comes to like taxes, right? We're independent contractors. How much money do you put away for taxes? Well, talk to an accountant, but I'll tell you guys, if I think that I'm going to be in the 28% bracket or 24% or 30, whatever the case might be, I always budget to put away like 5 or 10% more than that. So what does that mean? If you're at, let's say 100K, and I'm talking very generally, this is not tax advice, talk to your accountant. Let's just generally say, if I'm planning on making 100K and I think I'm going to get taxed 25% of my income, that means that I would be paying 25K at the end of the year. What do? I decide at that point, you know what, I'm going to put 30%. Every single check I get, I make a brand new bank account, and every check I get, I take that, I multiply it by 30%, and I move that into that bank account. Forget about it, leave it there. At the end of the year, when I go to do my taxes, guess what? I didn't factor a lot of things in, such as my deductions. I don't know exactly how much I'm going to spend in my deductions. I have general ideas because I business plan, but I always plan for more. What happens if I made 100K in gross income, but then I deducted, let's say 20K, because, business cards, I paid for videos, I paid for leads, I paid for mailers, I paid for all these different things. I can conceivably spend $20,000 in a year. So now I deduct my taxes, my income by 100K, and I'm only paying taxes on 80. And let's say I'm at 25% of 80. So that comes out to be 40, 10, that's 10K. Half, 40, yeah, 20K. So it's 20K. So I put away 30% of it, which comes out to be 24,000. So if I put 24,000 and I end up owing 20, I pay that 20 to the IRS, and then I have 4K of extra money, and I can do with that whatever I want. If I want to spend it on something nice for myself, I can do that because I had budgeted to pay that in taxes, but I saved myself money. So that's my play money. Let's say I want to take a vacation, I do that. Let's say I want to buy a watch, I'll use that. Let's say I want to, buy a billboard because I want to reinvest into my marketing. I do that. I'll do whatever I want with my money, right? Because I had earmarked it to pay for the IRS, but because I have a good accountant and because I plan properly, I actually paid a lot less. That's extra money. At the same token, so again, that's about 10% that I have for like marketing. Then I put away, let's say 25 or 30% for taxes, depending on the bracket. And then there should be like another 20% that you should put away for savings, right? So in reality, when you start doing the numbers, you're putting away like 60% of your money. You're only really living on 40% of your income. So let's spend accordingly. If you think you're making 100K, but in reality, you're taking home 40, don't live like you're making 100K. That's a very common mistake I see with realtors. You make 100K, you forget about all these other things. Your business is not going to grow if you don't reinvest into it. That's where that 10% of reinvesting into marketing comes in. Your business is going to cost you money in taxes. You got to put away money for it, because if you don't, when you get hit with that tax bill, you're going to be crying. Understandably so, but if you preempt it, it's going to suck, but it's like, damn, that sucked. But yeah, that I was expecting it, right? So this is what we have to think about as a business owner. So put that money away, and then off of like the budget that I'm going to give you guys. So you're going to essentially fill in all of your expenses, your cell phone, your car, your rent, your whatever, all of your expenses. That should only be 40% max of your total goal. So if your monthly expenses come out to, let's say, $3,000, $5,000, whatever it is, $5,000 a month comes out to $60,000 in a year, right? And if you know that you're only going to keep about 40% of your actual income, so then what do I have to make for 40% to equal 60, right? This is kind of what I'm getting at. It's all about numbers. And a lot of us, we're not taught this stuff. So this is what we want to do. But in order to understand that, you got to understand your sales volume, you understand what you've been doing, and then you got to see, is it realistic? Can I realistically live off of 60K? And guess what? If the answer is yes, great. If the answer is no, then that lights an additional fire under you. Like, my lifestyle is going to cost me 100K. That means I now have to make, let's say 300K. Well, how do you make 300K? Right? So now it's just like, we are in this business where it's feast or famine sometimes. So sometimes you don't see it. When you have the money in front of you, you spend it. But if you plan it out properly, you can live a better life, right? So if your lifestyle is like, you know what, I need to make 300K, guess what? That fire is going to be burning in you, because you look at the numbers and like, holy crap, I'm not making that. That means I can't sustain my lifestyle. Can you do it? Sure. A lot of people do it, but then you end up in debt, or it's not sustainable. You have a great year and then, you're good. But then if you have a shitty year, you can find yourself in a bad position. So that's where like your savings comes in. I always tell people you should have 6 months of like, you're making $0 and you can still cover it. Why? Because we never know what can happen in this market. A war could break out tomorrow, God forbid, everything halts. Like, look, when COVID first hit, everything stopped for 2 months, right? And what happened at that point? A lot of people were really worried, because we're living check by check. It's concerning. But if you put away 6 months of money, it's enough time, generally speaking, for things to get corrected, or for you to figure out what your next move is. For example, if I'm doing all sales and purchases, but something happens and I can't do that anymore, and I have to suddenly turn into short sales, guess what? 6 months should be enough time for me to start figuring that out. Or if I need to start doing BPOs again, I got to get out there and start doing that. It's enough time for me to figure it out. So I always tell people, in the beginning, before you put the 10% aside, put 30% until you hit 6 months of savings, right? After you have your 6 months reserve, and that should be a separate bank account. Guys, it's a lot of banks, it's free to have multiple bank accounts under your own same bank, as long as you have activity or whatever. So on my bank, I don't just have one, because for me personally, I don't want to see all my money in one place. I want to see as little as possible there. It keeps me hungry. It keeps me feeling like, holy crap, I have nothing, right? So then one of my 6 month savings is in a different bank entirely. That way I don't even see it. That's somewhere else. And I actually, Amex, American Express, has a savings account, and they're like a high yield savings. So I actually get a pretty good percentage, as opposed to Bank of America, it's less than 1%, right? So what I did, I took my 6 months and I sent it out. I don't even see it, but it's out there somewhere. Then under my main account, I have my main checking, where I handle most of my stuff. Then I have my personal savings. Then I have my tax savings, right? So then that's how I move things around. I really recommend that strategy, because it helps me. It might help you. So when you start operating in this way, you're gonna see that you're more cognizant of how you spend and how much you're making. And then you should revisit it on a monthly basis. Once you have a business plan, it's really cool, because you can reference, okay, I said that by Q1, which is the first 3 months of the year, I was gonna close 3-4 deals, whatever the case might be for yourself. Let's say it's 4 deals. So if I'm looking on January and February, I'm like, holy crap, I've only gotten 1. That means I need to do 3 more. The fire is under me to really get that done. And man, I'll tell you guys, in this business, this is the only business that you can do that. If I decide, you know what, I'm going to bust my ass and I'm going to do 15 deals before the end of the year, guess what? You can do it. You might not be sleeping as much. You might not be going out as much, but you can do it. So this is the type of strategy that helps you recognize up to like what you have to do to get there, right? You have to know your numbers. So talked a little bit about the budgeting and the numbers, about like what your business is. Talked a little bit about business planning, about how we strategize for the year. The next thing that I want to talk about in the business of a realtor is your day-to-day operations. You wake up and start your day. What do you do? Well, I'll give you a suggestion. I'll tell you guys kind of what's worked for me. And I've tried it and it's evolved in different ways in over the years. I have what I call a tracker. And I'll share you guys this template that I have. I'll show you guys real quick. So I'm going to share my screen. It started really with it was a little more simple. It was a Word document. You can drop it, it's fine. I'll show you my Word document first, and then I'll show you guys my current system, which is a lot more robust. Back in the day, let me find a really old file so you guys can see what I'm talking about. I used to just do a Word document that said, okay, the first thing I have to do for this transaction is, listed. Then after that, I had to go and I had to make the home inspection. And then after that, I had essentially it was just a breakdown of step by step what I had to do to get the deal done. I called it the transaction checklist. Let me show it to you guys now. And I'll share this with you guys too. So this was a deal that I did in Belleville back in the day, 2018. So this was my transaction checklist. I have this blank for every single one of my transactions. So the first thing for me was a contract folder. So in our case here, we have contract folders in transaction desk. So as soon as I'm under contract, my first task was complete my transaction desk. Why? Because you want to be organized. You should have systems. If you close your deal and you bring a check into the office, you don't want to be waiting to get paid on it, right? You want to get paid as soon as possible. But if your transaction desk isn't complete, then you're delayed. So you don't want to be dealing with a closing running around and then, oh crap, I forgot to upload this. I'm waiting for thousands of dollars, but I can't do it until I submit these things. First thing I do, as soon as I get under contract, I submit everything. I submit my contract, I submit the attorney review letters, I submit the lead-based paint, everything that was required, I submitted right off the rip. That was my first item, right? And then I have different sections. So one section for inspections, a section for lender, a section for title, and a section for CO. And then within that, I have subtasks. So my inspection is first. The first thing I got to do is schedule my home inspection. So then I would put a date next to it by when it's due. And I would put it in bold to know that that's the date that it's due. But then as soon as I completed the date, I would erase it and put the date that I actually did it and take the bold off. So everything that have bold dates are target dates that I have to hit. Everything that has a date that's not bolded is the date that I actually did it. Why? Because it also helped me track how fast I'm doing things. And if I see like, holy crap, this was due by July 18th and now it's August, I know I'm really behind on that, right? It's a good way for me to keep that in mind. So I also have that after the home inspection, I have to receive the report. Why do I have receive report? It's not an active thing that I'm doing, but I know that my home inspector usually turns it around for me in about 3 days. If I haven't gotten it by like the 4th or 5th day, guess what? I'm calling them. I'm following up. A lot of our business is following up, even if it's not in our hands. So I've always been proactive. A lot of people like working with me because of how proactive I am. And a lot of agents, it's an obstacle to be proactive because there's so many things that happen. So I found that me creating this little checklist made it very easy to do. So home inspection was due by this date. I got it. Great. I got it scheduled. I got it done. The report hasn't come in. It's a day or two after my date. Let me just give a call. Hey, what's going on, man? What's going on with this report? Oh, I'm sorry, I was out sick. Hey, no problem. Do you know when it's due by? Those are the types of things, like just quick little follow-ups. I put dates. And then I can't agree to repairs. For example, the next section there says agree to repairs. I can't agree to repairs if I don't have the report, right? So when I hit that point, that the next level, I can't do it because they're sequential, right? So I stop there and I go to the next section. So the next section is the lender. Okay. They have to finalize the mortgage application. That's not my job. That's the lender's job, right? But my lender typically checks in with me once a week and I'll have a little status update. So when he's like, oh, they finalized the application. Okay, great. I just hit done. Sometimes I know the date because they'll tell me, oh, they'll text me, hey, they just submitted the application. Great, I'll put the date. If not, I just write done. It's not a big deal. I don't care about the date. I just care that it gets done. The next thing I know is that I have to order the appraisal. So again, I've broken down the entire process into taskable items. And then I have dates by which I do. So what did I do every single morning? As a realtor, here's what I'll tell you what I did and I still continue to do for the most part. Wake up, check my emails. First and foremost, I just catch up with my emails because I can't go to check my tracker if some of these things could have happened and I don't know. I might have received the home inspection, but I haven't checked my emails, right? So before I even check my tracker, I check my emails. Let me go on my emails. Let me look at my inbox. If I get updates, I go into the tracker, I update it, send it back. Thank you so much, whatever. I catch up with my emails, get that out the way. The next thing I do is I check to see my missed calls. On our phones, it's easy to forget a missed call sometimes, right? Because you're busy, you're doing showings, you're running from one place to another. In the morning, I take my directory and I sort my calls for missed. You can do that. So then you can see all of the missed calls. All right, I replied to that person. I called them back. Oh, this one I haven't. Okay, boom, call them back. Take care of those items. Then I go to my text messages. All right, what's going on here? Reply. Once I've gotten through all my communications and I've kind of like caught up, I open up my trackers based off of what? I'm always concerned with dealing with the stuff that's going to make me money the fastest, right? So what do I work on first? My under contracts. Why? Because those are the closest to getting me paid. So that's the first thing I deal with in the morning, because guess what? I might have a CO inspection lined up. I might have somebody who calls me and interrupts me. A buyer might call me and says, hey, I need to see that property right now. So if I have limited time, because in our day, we get interrupted. That's our problem. As realtors, we always consistently get interrupted. So you want to try to schedule to do the most important things first. And then if you get interrupted, you come back and you pick up where you left off. So I open up my under contracts first. I start going through them. Okay, let's see what's next. That's done. That's done. Okay, I'm waiting on this. And I kind of like, I just check on all my files every single day. That's what you should be doing. Every single file, check on every single one. After I do my under contracts, I go to my listings. Why? Because buyers would be next, and those are the most time consuming. So I go to my listings and I see what's up. Okay, I got to do follow-ups with those agents. Let me call everybody who showed, get through that real quick. Or, oh shoot, I have to apply for CO. I forgot to do that. All right, let me fit it into my schedule somewhere and do that. Then after that, I go into buyers, and buyers are typically more time consuming, because that might mean me sitting on the MLS and see, okay, let me run my hot sheets. What came on the market last night? Let me see what's in the market new that may work for them. What came back to market? What price reductions happened, right? There's a lot of that. So I'll show you guys kind of the system that I use now. It's called ClickUp. This is like an example. I have one deal right here. Like if I go to my listings, I can pop one open and I can see right from the beginning, I can see what is due. So look, I have my pre-transaction checklist. So pre-transaction, I have to get the listing package signed. That's done. I hit complete. Boom, it goes in there complete. I completed my file transaction desk. That's already done. Once I'm already under contract, I have a couple things like home inspection, and I have all these little categories under it, and I can put dates. When is this due by? I can put a certain date here that is due by. I can even assign it to somebody. So I have my assistant, I can assign that to her. She can assign things to me that I need to get done. So this is a system that has obviously grown with me. When I was doing only, let's say, 10 transactions a year, I only need Word doc. It's not too hard. When I started doing like 25, 30, 35 in a year, that's when you need systems like this. So you don't need to get to this point just yet, but what I'm saying is everything is scalable. Your business should always be growing with you. And what I mean by that is systems, right? So, before, for example, I didn't have to pay for like the professional Adobe on my phone. Why? Because I wasn't crazy busy. I can just get to the office and do it on my computer. But guess what? Now I'm on the go all the time. I pay that $70 for the year to have professional, because I can sign on the go. So again, your business should scale with you as you go on. So going back to this, I think we're good here. After I did my checkups, I would do all my follow-ups and stuff. Then I would check on every single property, open up my sheet one by one, see what's going on with my individual deals. And guess what? If I get a call from a seller, I have checked on that property as recently as today or yesterday. Don't ever let more than 2 or 3 days go by when you don't know what's going on with a deal. You can get intense, right? Like a lot of people, and people are going to respect it. The people that don't respect it are the people who are crappy about their business. If they're not on top of their own business and you're hounding them, they're not going to respect that, because you're doing a better job than they are. The people that are professionals and like, wow, this person's on top of their business. Right. So I've come to learn that right from the beginning. I don't care if the other agent doesn't like the fact that I'm like, hey, wait, what's going on? I'm not like, at first you don't want to be rude about it, but you do want to say, hey, look, by the way, I know that this report was due by this date. Do you know what's going on? Obviously, I'm not calling them like, hey, it was due yesterday. Where is it? Right. I'm just checking in. Things happen. Oh, no, you couldn't do it. Okay, just give me an estimated time. Like, look, can I follow up with you in 2 days? Or I'll just check in with you and see what's going on. That type of consistency is going to make you and the people you work with better. And as a return, that's why, honestly, how I've gotten where I am. A lot of those agents that I've dealt with in the past, now if I call them, they love to work with me, because I'm not going to let the ball drop. It makes their life easier, the fact that my systems are in place, right? So I encourage you guys. It might sound like a lot, like it might seem like much, but this is the only way that you're going to scale. And if you're not too busy yet, I especially recommend that you start doing these things, because as your business grows, it's harder to adopt new systems, right? When you have more things in the air, it's harder to stop and reinvent it. If you start now and lay those proper foundations on how you automate your business, as you grow, it becomes easier. Seriously, like I went from only being able to handle, let's say 3 to 5 transactions at a time. So at one point we were working probably 15 transactions at a time. No sweat. Why? Because I have it systems. To me, it's no difference doing 1 and doing 15, because it's all systemized. So I really encourage you guys to do that. After you do all of those catch-ups, of course, I'm a very calendar-oriented person. Anybody who deals with me, you'll know if you want me to be somewhere, put that thing on my calendar. If it's not on my calendar, I won't be there. That's just the reality because it's so many things going on. I time block everything, even when I need to do, let's say, office hours, right? I know that I have a lot of things going on, and let's say on Tuesday and Wednesday, I scheduled a lot of showings and a lot of like COs, and I know I'm going to be out a lot. For Thursday, I want to put in a 4-hour block where I'm just going to be in the office. Like nobody's checking on that. But in my calendar, when I open it up, I know I have to be there to do something. That way, somebody calls me and they say, hey, I need to schedule an appraisal. Can you do 10 o'clock on Thursday? And I open my calendar. You know what? Like, it's an item on my calendar. It's not like it's just open. If it looks open, I might say yes to that. Now, if it's like an urgent matter and I know I can move it around, sure, I'm going to put it in there. If I get a listing appointment, hell yeah, I'm cutting my office hours short, right? I'm going to go to that and then I'll just rearrange it. But it's easier to have it there already. And if you need to move it, you reschedule it as opposed to not having it there. And as life fills up, you just end up not doing it, right? So I'm a very time block type of person. So I'll time block office hours. That's what I do. And then I'll try to make my appointments a little later. So I really advise you guys kind of getting into that habit, even if you're not too busy. Cold calling, put that on your calendar, 2 hours to cold call. It's going to increase the chance that you're actually going to do it because you see it on your calendar as a thing to do. Not everybody operates this way. I understand people are different. I'm giving you what works for me. I think if you guys get in the habit of doing it, it's all about habits, right? You make that into a habit. So that's a little bit about the day-to-day of the business of a realtor. The other component to it is those miscellaneous things. What are some of those things that like make you a better agent? Networking. I think it's an important thing because when you meet agents, you put a face to the name. A lot of times in this business, this is how deals get done. If you met somebody and you're not doing any business, you're not asking anything of them, you're just hanging out, talking, oh yeah, what's your experience, whatever. Not with an intention to recruit, not with an intention necessarily to do anything, just to literally develop a relationship. Just a working relationship with somebody. And then at some point, you're going to show a listing, you hit them up. Hey, how's it going? It was great seeing you. Like, oh, damn, I haven't seen you since like 3 months ago. Wow, that was a great event we went to, blah, blah, blah. We've been up to. Hey, by the way, I have a buyer. Guess what? When their guard is down, they're like, you know what? I have 3 offers, but if you get me 450, it's yours, right? That's the type of conversation that makes a difference between, getting hung up on by the listing agent when they're just busy and they're just trying to rush you off the phone and actually like, oh yeah, I remember I met you, whatever. Like that's, guys, crucially important. Take the time to do it. Sometimes networking events are paid events. Most times they're free. I find that at the paid events, you usually gotta get a smaller circle, which kind of helps. I would look, if that has to be in your budget for it, right? And look, a lot of people like the networking events because there's free drinks and food for the most part, right? When you go to a paid networking event or a free networking event, great that there's drinks. Don't overdo it, right? You don't want to make a mess of yourself either. You don't want to become the agent that's known for getting drunk at the events, right? Because guess what? When you're showing a property and you're calling that listing agent, oh yeah, I remember you, you puked on my shoes, right? That's the wrong impression. So being tactful with that. Look, it's a business. We can have fun. We can do, there's a lot of aspects to this that are phenomenal. I've just never been the one. You will never see me at an event drunk. Like, that's not me. I'll do that with my friends at my house, right? Or, you know what I mean? Like, there's just things like that. And look, sometimes it happens by mistake, right? Like, you might not have eaten and you have a couple of drinks. Being cognizant, guys. Business is all about being cognizant. Always be aware of your surroundings. Always be aware of yourself. Always be aware of deals. Like, you don't understand how easy it is to lose a client if that client calls you and says, hey, what's going on with my listing? And you have no fucking answer for them. That's terrible, right? So the fact that I check in on these listings on a daily basis, or at worst, every 2 days, I know what's going on. That morning, I looked up the showing time report and I saw that there was, 13 showings over the weekend. When my client calls me right off the rip, oh yeah, we had 13 showings. I'm working on calling everybody back. I'll let you know how the feedback happens. Those types of answers, I'm cognizant of it, right? Always be ready for those types of things. These are a couple of examples. Of course, there's a lot more, guys. We can sit here. I think what we're going to be doing is when we do our either monthly meetings, we're kind of discussing how we're going to lay it out. But I want to kind of just talk about these good practices of being realtors. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have it, right? Maybe at the next mastermind, I'll ask the top producers, what are your good practices, right? Because the more we develop this, the better we run our business as realtors. So to me, it's about the money, right? You got to know your numbers. You got to know your money, because that's how you set your targets. And how you set your targets and how you plan your business is also going to depend a lot on how you run your business, the operations, how you have your processes. If you don't have processes, you're not going to be able to grow. Or if you grow, it's going to be painful. You're going to be stressed out. Oh my God, I got to do all these things. Guess what? If at one point I started determining how much I was making, and then I said, you know what, I can afford to pay for an assistant or a virtual assistant or a VA or whatever the case might be, a transaction coordinator. I can afford to do that. And can that get me more business? How do I make that decision if I don't have a plan for how much money I'm going to make? You can't. A lot of times you feel like you can't afford it because maybe you only think about when you get your money. But if you have that budgeted, you say, okay, I got to pay X amount, and that's part of my budget. So now I got to make X more. When you start, it's a hugely motivating thing to know that I got to make X per month. A lot of us don't operate that way. We just try to make however much we can, right? But that's not always working. You got to say, I got to make X per month. And what does that mean in deals? And if you're not doing it, then you can't afford your lifestyle. And if you can't afford your lifestyle anymore, that's really what's going to motivate most people, in my opinion. We have a lot of whys. We'll talk about that later on in like a motivational training. But at the end of the day, it's your day-to-day. What kind of house do you want to live in? What kind of car do you want to drive? What kind of things do you want to have? Those are the things that motivate you to work. And it's a constant reminder. If you have a business plan, it's a constant reminder. If I don't do this, I can't get the things that I want. So that's generally an intro to kind of what I want to talk about, us thinking of ourselves as a business. I'm going to be giving you guys a lot more resources, and then we'll kind of take it from there. Any questions from anybody on any of this stuff?
Would you recommend for somebody to take an LLC?
Yeah, that's a separate conversation entirely, but I'll hit on this a couple of things. One, in New Jersey, we haven't been allowed to do LLCs until now.
Okay, so
Until now. There was a law that got introduced. It was voted on and passed. Right now, we're waiting for the Real Estate Commission to update their guidelines. So the law is in effect, signed by the governor, everything. But it only takes place after the Real Estate Commission updates their rules. For those of you that don't know, the Real Estate Commission is a board of people. They're agents and brokers. I think you have to be like a broker for 10 years and you get appointed. It's like 7 people. So they don't meet too often. And when they do meet, it's mostly hearings. So it's been a little bit of a slow process. I actually checked in on this like last month, and it doesn't look like it's going to get done this year. But it's definitely on their agenda for the end of the year. So we should, at the beginning of the year, be able to enact this. What does it mean? Very big level, very broad. I'm not an accountant. I'm just giving you an idea. If you earn commission to an LLC and you tax yourself as an S corp, again, separate training, you can pay yourself from your company. So you have an LLC. Mine is Castleton's Real Estate LLC. I make my commissions to that LLC and I pay myself from that LLC. I pay myself as an employee. So I'm a W-2 employee of my company, right? That LLC, let's say you make $100K. You have to pay yourself what's called a reasonable salary. And a reasonable salary, most accountants are going to say is going to be like 35%. So if I make $100K, I got to pay myself a 35K salary. I pay taxes, employment taxes on that 35K, not on the 100K. All of my expenses come out of my LLC. And when you're an S corporation, you can expense a lot more things. Once you expense all those things, what's left over, you can pay yourself as a K1 distribution, which is, it's a way that the IRS code is written. When you pay yourself as a K1 distribution, that is not self-employment. When you pay yourself as a 1099, you got to pay self-employment taxes, which is about 15%. So imagine if you're saving 15% on 100K, it's $15,000. Right off the rip, if you make that move the right way, you're saving $15,000 on a $100,000 salary. That's a big move. And that's honestly only the beginning. There's so much more.
Wow.
You can actually save like 25% of money if you tax it right. We want to get somebody in to talk about that who's certified public accountant to actually give you guys a good breakdown. I can definitely break it down for you guys. I've been doing it on my my real estate like investment company. So I have another LLC where I own my rental properties and I do my consulting and all that stuff. That's an S corporation, and I pay myself a salary and I tax it as an S corporation. So that's why I know how it works. but we haven't been able to do it as real estate. It's going to be a game changer. Because imagine if you save yourself 15K in taxes, you can choose to even give yourself something nice or invest 15K into marketing, which can really multiply your business, you know?
So right now we have to wait for the commission, or can we go ahead and start our race?
So, okay, you can start an LLC. The brokerage, Lifestyle International Realty, is not supposed to pay you as an LLC yet, because the real estate commission, to this moment, does not allow us to pay an LLC. We have to pay, because the LLC has been looked at as not a licensed entity. The LLC doesn't have a license. You as a person has a license. They changed the law to allow it so that if a member of the LLC has a license, you can now pay it there. So that's the change that we're waiting for. That's the technical change. So we as Lifestyle can't pay you. Now, that being said, and again, I'm not giving you advice, talk to a public accountant, talk to a CPA. I know of people, myself included, that if I receive payment of commission to my personal name, I endorse that payment to my LLC. And I do an update to my 1099 so that my commissions actually go to my LLC. And then I pay myself from the LLC. It's a little, so it's like, it's not a, if you talk to a CPA, they'll tell you if they feel comfortable doing that or not. Don't do it if the accountant says, look, I'm not comfortable doing that, because if you get audited, I can't defend that. I spoke to a CPA. The CPA told me I'm very comfortable doing that. And this is a strategy that has been audited before, and the audit has passed by the IRS, because it's actually very common in other states. In Florida, all of our agents have LLCs and they all do it, right? So the IRS is a federal entity. For them, this is nothing new. So for you to do this is completely normal. Based on what my CPA says, talk to your CPA. I'm not telling you to do that. Again, we can't pay your LLC, but the strategy that I got from my CPA was, okay, take the money and then endorse it over to your LLC, right? And then amend your 1099. Talk to your accountant about it.
So technically, we shouldn't even bother getting an LLC until they figure that crap out.
I'm not saying that. I think you could get your LLC. I would advise to get it. I mean, there's really, you can start running things from your LLC for sure. Is there, look, I think the break even point, like you got to make like at least 50K. If you're making like 50K or more, your LLC as an S Corp makes sense. If you're making less, it doesn't really make sense, because of the way that the deductions happen and like at what scale. Like you got to pay a CPA more to do an LLC. It's more of a hassle. You have to file separate deadlines. You have to do annual budgets. Like it's a hassle. So if you're not going to get much of a monetary compensation, you might as well not do it. But if you're making more than 50K, the numbers start to add up. Like, okay, it's worth the hassle. Yeah. So, and like, it kind of depends on where you are. Again, I want to bring in a CPA and then maybe do like a more formal training on that, so you guys have a better idea. Yeah. And you look here. Let me just look at the chat, because I know a lot of people. Edna always here putting some stuff. Any other questions from you guys?
Tiona had one there.
All right, I'm looking for it. Hold
Oh,
on.
no, but he answered it while he was speaking.
Look at that. See what happens. What was that question? You can use LLC, string. Okay. All right. No, that's fine. So I'm gonna wrap it up here. Oh, hold on. What income bracket do you? Oh, yeah. So it's not so much an income bracket. I think it's like 50K is really where it makes sense. When you look at the numbers, that's kind of how it boils down. I'm excited to do this next phase of it, because I think it's like some of these things that really can impact you in such a profound way. When I started looking at things this way, my business shifted, because it's not me spending money, it's me investing money. And it doesn't become an expense, it becomes part of my budget, right? If I know that I'm going to spend right from the beginning, imagine, just really think about it, right? If you know last year, let's say you made $60,000. and you say this year I'm going to spend $5,000, you already have that out of your mind. It's not going to hurt when you spend the $5,000, because you've already budgeted for it. Decisions, and this is true in life, guys, when you make decisions before you have to make them, you usually make them better. What does that mean? When you're in a moment and you're about to make a decision, you are clouded by your emotions, whether they be good or bad, right? Let's say you're in a situation and you're about to buy, you're making a big purchase. Those feel nerve-wracking, right? But you may get excited about that car. That's why I tell people, look, if you go to a dealership, you should go in there saying, I'm not gonna walk out of here with anything signed. In my personal rule, I never make a decision that locks me in for longer than 3 months or spends more than $5,000 without sleeping on it. Why? Because I know that my emotions can alter my judgment. So if I go into any situation, I gotta look at it, analyze it, back away, sleep on it, analyze it again, and then make the decision. Same thing when you're budgeting for your business. If you just made the money, you're happy that you have money. Let's say you just got a $7,000 check, and you're like, yeah, fuck it, yeah, $600 on sneakers, yeah, no problem, right? But that's not how I should function, because I know that my emotions are playing with me. I gotta make that decision in a cool, organized manner. That way, when I go to it, I have no remorse and I've thought about it properly. It's the same thing with a budget. If you're gonna spend money on marketing, you gotta think about it properly, plan it all out, know how much you're planning to spend on it, write it down, and then when you do it, it's not a problem because you already budgeted for it. That mental shift is going to change the way that you handle your business, in my opinion. So we'll leave it at that. I've been working on it for a little bit. I'll work on the other presentation, and then I'll send out the thing that I showed you guys about the Excel sheet. I'll send that out. And then I also want to get that other budget sheet for you guys. That way you guys have some time to work on it. And then I'll do it, like I said, 2-part training. One part is going to be the training on how to do it. And the second part is a workshop where we get together and discuss kind of like what you did. And I'm very open. I'll tell you exactly what my goals are, what my monetary goals are. And look, at the end of the day, it's not bragging. It's just like, if I can do it, you can do it. And if you see me doing it, it's going to motivate you to do it. And it works the same if you're making 50K, 100K, 200K, 300K, 500K. It works the same exact way. So start getting into these habits now, so that when you get to those points, it's already well established. And I honestly believe you'll get there quicker if you do it like this. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm going to save the recording and I'll be posting it. Talk to you guys later.
Oh, good, yeah.